Yo, what's up everyone? OJ here. Welcome back to another video, and man, we've got to talk about this because we've heard about the Nintendo Switch sales, how they did gangbusters, over 20 million units sold for the past fiscal year, and we went over the NPD, but there was some more information that came out that I think directly ties into what Nintendo's going to do in the future. And guys, it's going to be exciting. I definitely want to talk about this because I haven't really seen anything like this ever before when it comes to sales numbers and the allocation because of potentially a world event happening, but also a game. It's like the perfect storm of everything that combined to see this crazy number that the Nintendo Switch sold. So there was a new report from Golden Casino News. Nintendo Life also did an article about this, and it shows that Nintendo, according to the report, sold 4.2 million Nintendo Switch consoles in March alone. So in March, just that month, 4.2 million consoles. Now, what we usually get when it comes to the numbers, we just get the worldwide totals. We get the quarterly breakdowns like every 3 months or whatever from Nintendo, but they don't actually give us individual month sales when it comes to the year ending reports or anything like that. But Golden Casino News actually broke it down or got their hands on some information here, and according to that report, 4.2 million of the 21.03 million sales came from March alone. That means that 20%, a fifth of the total sales, right around 20%. That is absolutely crazy. But we also have a breakdown in terms of the units per region, and they broke it down into 3 separate regions: North America, Europe, and Japan. So in North America, as of May 2020, the Nintendo Switch has sold 20.61 million units. In Europe, it sold 14.3 million units. And in Japan, it sold 13.4 million units there. So overall, the breakdown shows that clearly Japan and Europe are just about equal, but then also the US is by far the biggest install base with over 20 million in just the US alone. So absolutely insane there when it comes down to the breakdown. But let's talk about what's going to be happening next, because I think people can sit here and say, okay, well, what does these sales do for me as the consumer? Well, there's a multitude of things that it does, and I kind of want to break down and kind of go down each one of these. When it comes to software that we're going to be seeing, upcoming software that's obviously not announced yet, and what developers are thinking, then also future hardware for Nintendo and how that factors into everything. So let's take a look at software that we do know of. Obviously, the Nintendo Switch has been getting a pretty steady supply of software, whether it be old school games or ports or remasters, re-releases, remakes, whatever the case is, a lot more than what we've seen in the past with the Wii U and the Nintendo 3DS. So right off the bat, the sales automatically help us as the consumer. We're getting way more games being released on the Switch than we've ever seen before in the past generation when it comes to 3DS or when it comes to the Wii U. The last time that we saw games released at this pace was the DS and the Wii days. But to be honest, like those days, the type of software necessarily wasn't the best when it comes down to it. Yes, there were some amazing games across the DS and on the Nintendo Wii, and I'd probably say that the DS probably has more or better games than the Wii. But I think that the quality of games being released because of how well the Switch is doing is very good. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a bunch of crappy games on the eShop, and there's a bunch of eShop games and smaller titles and people trying to exploit the big install base of the Switch. But when it comes to the bigger publishers and developers out there, we are seeing quite a number of great releases that never were on the DS and never were on the 3DS or the Wii or the Wii U finally make their way over to Nintendo's platform. We're seeing that with a variety of games. We've seen the return of Mortal Kombat come back to the Switch. We've seen stuff like Doom. We've seen Skyrim, Wolfenstein. There's just been a number of bigger franchises that have never appeared on a Nintendo platform or have taken a long break from appearing on Nintendo platform finally come out for the Nintendo Switch. So that's really cool. And we're going to be seeing more, right? We have the Outer Worlds this week. We got Borderlands. We got XCOM. We also got BioShock, a bunch of 2K games that once again never have appeared on Nintendo platforms in the history of the industry. And we're finally seeing those type of games. And that's all due to the big sales of the Nintendo Switch. So you can definitely expect to see way more re-releases, remasters, ports of previous games from the Xbox 360 and the Xbox One. That's going to continue on for the next couple years, if not longer, depending on how long Nintendo goes with the Switch here, because the sales are going to continue, as we saw here with that explosive sales for March with Animal Crossing and everything. And once again, let me not get it twisted here, which I didn't mention Animal Crossing, but Animal Crossing is definitely a huge reason why those sales are there, along with the pandemic that's going on, plus just, like I said, a variety of other factors, everything kind of coming into one here with this one. Just being able to have that type of console quality anywhere is very valuable to people at this point when it comes to what's going on in the world. Now, let's talk a little bit about future software, because I think that's one thing that people have definitely brought up a number of times in my live streams or in just various different talks, chats, and everything. Like, what's Nintendo going to be doing going forward? We have the pandemic that's causing issues. Obviously, we have a lot of stuff when it comes to working from home, adjusting, meetings, like all of it takes way more time than what it would take to just be right there in person, which is why companies usually like to have you right there in person, because you don't have to deal with certain type of things when you have meetings right there. It's easier to not have leaks get out as well when it comes to internet and stuff like that. But I will say this with future software, I think we're going to see a number of pretty cool games being released. Now, obviously, a lot of the developers, especially the Western developers and the bigger Japanese developers, are planning for the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X. So a lot of the attention is definitely devoted to those two systems, so those systems can get off to a good foot. And I think that it's very important. But that's not to say that there isn't going to be new software for the Switch. That's not to say that there aren't going to be new game announcements and new games just in general. I would expect to see this year and probably early next year some actual new games, or maybe even another third-party exclusive or two jump into the fray. We have stuff like Ninjala, for example, that's launching this year. That's a new game that's exclusive to the Switch. Expect there to be a few more of those type of announcements from Japanese developers going forward, because of the install base, because of the domination that we do see in Japan. When it comes to Western developers, I don't think we're going to be seeing that too much from them. I mean, they, like I said, are obviously busy, hard at work on getting the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X games ready to go, because it's very important for those systems to do well. They help sustain the business just like Nintendo helps sustain it, and we need all three companies giving it max effort. So these developers definitely need to put a lot of time and effort and work into that to get those games running good and, you know, kind of acclimate themselves to the hardware and everything like that. So they're working really hard. But like I said, there's definitely going to be some pretty good surprises when it comes to even newer games and even ports. We saw what Virtuos had to say about the Nintendo Switch, how they plan on doing PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X games on the Nintendo Switch. Porting to the Nintendo Switch isn't something like you can just snap your fingers and all of a sudden a Switch port appears. You've got to work hard. You've got to optimize. It's definitely something that takes a good amount of time and skill and effort to do, but we've seen studios like Virtuals kind of pop up, basically becoming the new panic button. I mean, they have more employees from what I understand. They're doing more games. I mean, pretty much just like they just dropped like what, 6 games or something like that. They did all of those 2K games, you know, so that's nuts. That's just absolutely insane. And they're pretty much worldwide, but we're going to see them handling some new games as well. It's not just going to be older games, older ports, 360, PS3, or old PS4 and Xbox One games. I think we're going to see stuff like Mortal Kombat as well, where you're like, oh wow, okay, that game's on the Nintendo Switch as well. So that's pretty cool. So we should see that, but like I said, it's not going to be all over the place. It's not going to be like a bunch of games all of a sudden, you know, like are all getting Switch ports alongside PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X. I don't think that's going to be the case just because of the architecture differences and things like that. But I think we are going to see continued support kind of going forward. Now, let's talk about how this all ties in to the future of Nintendo and what they're going to be doing with their hardware. So I think that it's always interesting with Nintendo hardware because they base it on gimmicks, right? And which is good gimmick, a good gimmick or a bad gimmick. It's not like in a negative connotation when I say gimmick, all right? And Nintendo's gimmicks have sometimes knock it out of the park, sometimes don't, right? Over the course of history, sometimes they just nail it, and it's just like, man, that was an amazing gimmick. Then other times you're like, oh snap, like this one failed, like the Wii U, for example, or like the Virtual Boy, for example, too, right? So there's times where they get it really good, and there's times that it's just like, oh my gosh, this was not good. But I think that out of all of the gimmicks, which I've talked about before, but I wanted to make sure that I tie it into, you know, the sales and everything like that. Out of all the gimmicks Nintendo's ever done, like this is by far the best gimmick because it's combined what they've been doing and a long-standing problem that Nintendo gamers have had with portables and home consoles. They've combined that together, which form the ultimate system for many people, but at a higher quality that we've ever seen. Because if you compare 3DS quality games to Nintendo Switch quality of games, it is a massive, like, multi-generational jump, right? To be able to play a game like Doom 2016 or even like Doom Eternal or stuff like that that's upcoming, or the Outer Worlds, to be able to play that anywhere that you want. I mean, that's nuts. We haven't really seen that from a modern system unless you have some type of like GPD win or something weird like Windows, portable Windows player or something like that. Windows PC, more like it. But we've never seen that before. So to see that type of quality anywhere that you want is just an insane leap. So I think that with that risk that they took, with that gimmick that they have, they can even go further. And I think that what they used at the time, the Tegra X1, that was the best in the market from when they actually had to get the graphics and get the settings done and get the development kits ready to go, right? That was 2015 tech that they were showing that off. So they used what the newest and latest they could, and they were jumping into this somewhat blind, right? Because they'd never made a system like this before. They'd never made something that was like the Switch. You know, they've always made it to where it's like you got the home console, you got the portable, and then if you want to play games on the TV, there's like the Game Boy Advance player, there's like the Super Game Boy or something like that, right? But they never made a true hybrid system before. So that risk was big, but it paid off big time when it comes down to it. So I think that going forward, they know that they can kind of go all in with their next system and really make this a beast of a hardware for a hybrid device. Don't expect it to be like, you know, bigger or stronger than the Xbox Series X. You can't do that, or you're going to run around with like 10 Game Gears, or the size of something that's like the size of 10 Game Gears, you know, for a portable device. Or it's going to be like this, like a smartphone, but it's going to cost like $1,000 like smartphones cost, you know, like the high-end smartphone. So don't expect that, but expect a system that's definitely going to be a lot more powerful when it comes to the relative space with other systems than what the Nintendo Switch was. I think it's going to be pretty good. I think they're going to use some more custom architecture and some other things in order to kind of get that hidden power, which the Switch has just a little bit when it comes down to it. But if you look at the Switch, I mean, it's crazy the amount of low wattage it has and to what it can output. I mean, with the battery life that it has. So I think it's going to be very exciting going forward in the future for Nintendo fans. I think we're going to get a pretty dope Switch 2 system or something like that in the future. And I think that it's probably going to be within the next 2 to 3 years that we see this next system here. But I think the Switch itself, which Nintendo said they're about halfway through, I think it still has quite a bit of life left in it. But what are you guys' thoughts here when it comes to the sales and also the future predictions with the Switch hardware and Nintendo? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Check out the links in the description. We've got Twitter. Go and give us a follow on there. Stay up to date on all the latest gaming news and information. Also, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and share this video if you can. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll catch you for the next one. Peace.